and welcome everyone to this special Lantern Festival edition of Biz Talk. I'm Michael Wang. I'm joined by Louisa Lee, who is the anchor of CGTN's The Vibe.
Hello, Michael, and thank you for having me here. And a big hello to everyone who is tuning in. Michael, I'm thrilled to join you and our fellow Biz Talkers on this special day. It's not every day when the moon is bright and full and when Chinese dessert Tang Yuan is waiting for us to be indulged.
Absolutely. We're going to talk about the Tang Yuan in just a second,
Okay.
Louisa. These are glutinous rice balls that you eat during the Lantern Festival. But first of all, a shout out, to our virtual studio. I love being in this Chinese courtyard. We've got so many traditional Chinese elements being decorated in this courtyard. I see lanterns, of course. What else do we see?
We have the Chinese knots, which represents good luck and keeps us evil spirits away. We also have paper cutting on the windows. And what else?
Well, we've got that special character, Fu, right behind us, which of course means auspiciousness in Chinese. Red, so that represents auspiciousness and prosperity. And of course, the Lantern Festival, that is the final day of the Chinese New Year celebration. So we're certainly wishing our viewers a happy Lantern Festival and of course a happy Year of the Dragon or the Year of the Long. Louisa, let me ask you, how many years have you been in China, and are there any interesting experiences that you had during the Lantern Festival?
Of course. I mean, I've been here for 6 years, so I had my share of fun here in the country. A few years back, we had a live stream show in Zigong City, that's in Sichuan province. During the Lantern Festival, the city is known for its lantern craft, and it was absolutely stunning. It's such a festive and social event. Michael, just imagine yourself in a city of lights, and that's an understatement. I feel like everyone from the city was there. The park was packed with visitors, and you are just enveloped by an array of lanterns. We're talking about lanterns that were as high as buildings, and there were also performances in every corner you take. I was fascinated by the whole thing and by the traditional Bianlian show. And just to explain to our viewers what that is, Bianlian is part of the Sichuan opera and a Chinese dramatic art form in which performers change their face instantly with a swipe of a fan or a movement. So all in all, it was brilliant, and I really recommend our viewers to go check it out.
That's a great show, Louisa. I also recommend our viewers to check out that Bianlian show, which is changing faces. That's what it's literally translating into. What a fantastic light show that you were showing us in Zigong in Sichuan province. So hopefully, I want to go see that one day as well. I haven't seen that yet. But the Lantern Festival, there's a lot of symbolism to this, isn't it, Louisa? What does it all represent?
It's really about getting together and having a good time, having a blast with the people that you love. The Lantern Festival falls on the last day of the Chinese New Year holiday, and it bears a great message. The lantern signals new beginning, driving out the darkness and bringing hope for the new year. I say let the past be the past, let bygones be bygones as a new adventure awaits.
Absolutely. Words of wisdom there, Louisa. So how do Chinese people traditionally celebrate the Lantern Festival?
I mean, I mentioned earlier that it's about getting together and having fun with your family and friends, socializing, eating Tang Yuans together. People attend like local fairs, they go to the temples, they admire the lanterns and traditional performances. And of course, you can't forget the riddle games and eating the delectable Tang Yuans.
You mentioned Tang Yuan several times, Louisa. We're going to talk about that in a second, and hopefully we're going to have some after the show, so stay tuned for that. Well, traditional festivities are buzzing across the country as the Lantern Festival illuminates China. The ancient city of Quanzhou in Fujian province on the southeast coast of China is certainly no exception. Now, some 1,000 years ago, Quanzhou was the start of the maritime Silk Road, and Marco Polo himself was in Quanzhou, marveling at the city, calling it the world's largest port, rivaling Egypt's Alexandria. So here's a look at how the Lantern Festival is celebrated over in Quanzhou.
I'm now in Quanzhou, a World Heritage City located in southeast China. Behind me, you can see a gigantic light lawn, which is over 10 meters long, hovering above the entrance of an alley and greeting people with its nodding head. It is part of our celebration this year. To mention to you that Quanzhou is an ancient city with a history of over 1,800 years. Yuan Xiaojie, also known as Lantern Festival, is one of the most important festivals celebrated here since ancient times. And this year is no exception. There are roughly 1,000 festival lanterns spread across the old town of Quanzhou this year. And as you know, it is the year of the long, so the lanterns and art installations of long elements are the most popular. Enlightened by the mythology of Long's 9 sons, and Quanzhou local artists have designed and made several Long statues this year. And these statues are now displayed on different spots of Old Town of Quanzhou. So with a map featuring the location of each Long statue, visitors can easily follow the traces of Longs to explore the Old Town, as well as to feel the hustle and bustle of this ancient city. During the Lantern Festival, besides the lantern exhibition I just mentioned, visitors can also experience the charm of intangible culture heritage projects here. For example, Quanzhou restarts Caijie, or folk parade show, this year after a 20-year hiatus. And this year's procession has been the biggest one for the last 4 decades. And there were over 30 teams of over 1,500 performers involved in this event. And over 30 Quanzhou's traditional intangible culture heritage projects were displayed. In the parade, floats decorated with long elements are very impressive, as well as dragon dances in Quanzhou style. For example, and Xianglong, or incense long, with over 2,000 lighted incenses stuck to its straw metal body, is quite a spectacle. So, in short, this parade offered visitors a splendid journey through Quanzhou's traditional folk customs, receiving a total of 300,000 visits. What's more, in this street block, there were different kinds of traditional performances have been given, and almost every night since the Spring Festival. And also, don't forget, there's one thing a lot of people love to do, and while strolling on this street, that is eating the local delicacies. The alley is now lined up with so many delicious things to eat, along with the booths featuring the traditional Quanzhou culture. You may also notice that there are a lot of visitors here who are wearing a kind of special floral headgear. That is called Zanhuawei, a traditional costume of the Xunpu ladies in the Quanzhou fishing village. Now this headgear goes viral, and wearing Zanhuawei has become a must-do for many visitors during their stay in Quanzhou. And it can't be not denied that this outfit just perfectly fits in the festive vibe here. The celebration will last a few days. As you see, we are ready to party up with visitors from all over the world. Back to you, Michael.
All right. Thank you for that, Xuelin. I want to party it up in Quanzhou as well. Thank you for giving us a cultural tour of how Quanzhou celebrates the Lantern Festival. And Louisa, one of the performances that we saw in Quanzhou right there was that sword fight performance by a Shaolin monk. Actually, the Shaolin monks, there's a difference between the northern and southern regions for Shaolin monks, and if you go to Quanzhou, you're going to see that. But have you been to Quanzhou before?
Well, I've never been to Quanzhou, but that looks like really good fun.
Yeah.
And, you know, I would want to go check it out if I have a chance. But I heard a lot of great things about the city. It's very rich in culture and history, with scores of famous temples scattered around town. And because it has a long history of trade, it's a treasure house of diverse cultures. Now, I don't want to keep mentioning food, but I can imagine the food, the seafood especially, being super good. You know, Southern hospitality also never disappoints, and that is a fact.
I mean, you're right about that. Quanzhou has some great seafood, so highly recommend it. A tip for international tourists who want to visit Quanzhou: so besides strolling through Old Town Quanzhou and steeping yourself in history, one can also be steeping some very special oolong tea that's native to the region. Now, Fujian province is renowned for its oolong tea and maritime tea trade. And Louisa, I know you know a little bit of Hokkien, which is the regional dialect in that part of China. So speaking of tea, how do you say tea in Hokkien?
It's called te.
Te.
Te, yeah.
Yeah, which sounds very similar to
the English word tea, right?
Yes.
So it makes sense that tea is called
tea.
Yeah, tea.
It comes from te in
yeah.
Hokkien because Quanzhou was such a hub for maritime tea trade. And I guess that's how tea got its name, from Quanzhou. Yeah. All right. Well, turning our focus now to the ancient Chinese city of Xi'an in northwest China's Shanxi province. The city has over 3,000 years of history, served as the capital of 13 dynasties, and was the eastern departure point of the ancient Silk Road, and is also home to the world-renowned terracotta warriors. And China's first emperor built his capital near modern-day Xi'an. The city's former name was Chang'an, or the City of Eternal Peace, an absolutely beautiful name, a city that contributed so much to Chinese civilization, history, and culture. So let's indeed head to Xi'an right now for a look at the festivities there. Wow, a stunning light show in Xi'an as well. So at its zenith in the middle of the 8th century, Xi'an, or Chang'an as it was called then, was the world's largest city, boasting a population of around 1 million people inside its massive city walls. 3 million people lived in Chang'an if you included the city's suburbs. Now, Chang'an was cosmopolitan, which was reflected in the city's openness, inclusiveness, energy, and dynamism. It was a hub of culture, trade, and diplomacy, where people from different civilizations, religions, and cultures all traded and lived in peace and harmony inside the city walls. So, Louisa, how do you view the Tang Dynasty, which was about 1,200 to 1,400 years ago?
Well, Tang Dynasty can be said to be one of China's golden eras. It was when the economy flourished and when arts and culture thrived. This is when art, sculpture, music, dance, and poetry reached its point of brilliance. For example, it was when poets started jotting down wise words and when woodblock painting was created, just to name a few examples. Revered poets like Li Bai and Du Fu came about during the Tang Dynasty, and their poems are still being admired today. And of course, social events were at its peak as well. People were really enjoying life and what it had to offer. And if you visit museums around the world today, you'll see countless cultural pieces from the Tang Dynasty, and that reflects their way of life that's brimmed with significance.
Yeah, again, if you go to Xi'an, make sure to check out the terracotta warriors. But Louisa, if you could choose to go back in time, which Chinese dynasty would you go back? I mean, 5,000 years of history, it's a hard choice. Which one would you pick?
I mean, if I could travel back in time, I mean, it would have to be the Tang Dynasty, right? I just mentioned. It was an era when cultures really advanced and creativities were unleashed. So I can imagine it being really open at the time, and people are willing to try new things. The capital at the time was an international metropolis, and the trade routes were also very lucrative. So I think it would be a fascinating time to live in as it embraced the openness, making all dreams possible.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. You know what? I second that. If I could go back in time, I would also choose the Tang Dynasty.
So I will see you there.
I'll see you there. I mean, you can get some pretty cool stuff. We had Syrian priests, monks from India, Korea, Japan, all there. So you could find the world's goodies all over.
It was really diverse at the time.
Very diverse, very open.
Yeah.
All right, so let's take a look now at the Lantern Festival in Xi'an, how it's celebrated in the city. Jing Yuan and Ma Jing from Xi'an Broadcasting Corporation are on the ground for us in the ancient capital for more. Hi there, Jing Yuan. Happy Lantern Festival.
Thank you, Michael and Louisa, and happy Lantern Festival to everyone. I'm Jing Yuan. Right now, I'm in Daming Palace National Heritage Park in Xi'an. Behind me is the main gate of the Daming Palace, the Danfeng Gate. This place was once the largest and most gorgeous imperial palace complex in the world in the Tang Dynasty. Today, I will take you to feel the Lantern Festival in Xi'an. One of the traditional customs of the Lantern Festival is to appreciate the lanterns. You can go and see lanterns in many places in Xi'an, such as the City Wall. Beginning since 1984, the Xi'an City Wall Lantern Festival has existed for 37 years, which has developed into a well-known cultural tourism activity in Xi'an. You may see that no Xi'an local can miss the lantern show in the Chinese New Year. Another good place to see lanterns is in Qujiang District, where the Grand Tang Mall and the Tang Paradise are located. Each area attracts thousands of tourists to view Xi'an's various New Year activities. In addition, attractions such as the Kunming Lake and the Xinqing Palace also held special themed lantern shows. But it is the first time to hold the lantern show at the Daming Palace this year. the first Town Palace Lantern Festival created 5 cultural spaces. We can see a lot of Central Asian elements of lanterns. As we know, the China Central Asian Summit was held in Xi'an last year. So you can see the lanterns with elements of Kazakhstan, Turkmenistan, Kyrgyzstan, Uzbekistan, and Tajikistan, showing the culture and the friendship among China and the 5 Central Asian countries. The most highlighted at the Damian Palace Lantern Festival is this giant dragon lantern site, which is more than 20 meters high and is one of the biggest lantern sites in Xi'an this year. Under the dragon lantern, it's a stage where you can see Chinese traditional dances, music instruments, and tomboys all day. This place is so vibrant with Lantern Festival vibe. Next, let's follow my colleague Ma Jing to see how things are in Yongxingfang.
Hello everyone, I am Ma Jing here. Now I am standing in the heart of the Yongxingfang, an intangible cultural heritage block nested at the foot of the Xi'an City Wall. It's been buzzing with tourists for almost like a month, all caught up in the lively Spring Festival vibe. Now come with me as we dive into the flavors and heritage this place holds. Now please check out the scene behind me. A stunning dragon-shaped lantern is ready for visitors to explore. It's not just a feast for the eyes, but visitors can also leave their good wishes on the long scales to pray for blessing. Now, when it comes to Chinese festivals, delicious food is a must. Yongxingfang boasts over 800 types of Shanxi delicacies. But on Lantern Festival, you have got to try the special treats. Northerners in China would go for yuan xiao, while Southerners are all about tangyuan. They might look similar because they got the sweet rice dumplings inside, but trust me, there's a world of difference about how they're made and how they taste. And guess what? Our sports team is cooking up both yuan xiao and tangyuan, and we're handing them out for free. Yongxingfang isn't just a food heaven, it's a gym for cultural preservation. Every day, you can catch Qin opera performance, and as night falls, the place lights up even more. You can enjoy traditional shows like shadow puppetry and northern Shanxi storytelling, giving you a feel for the rich history and culture that spans thousands of years. It's worth nothing that non-stop performances showcasing intangible cultural heritage of China are also taking place in a scenic spot. As I'm talking, 5 performances just strolled by me. Now let's say a big hello to our audience from all around the globe. 来，各位，咱们准备好，3、2、1。Welcome to Xi'an! Happy Chinese New Year! Woo! That will be all for now. Back to you, Michael.
Wow, thank you so much, Ma Jing and Jingyuan in Xi'an for us, celebrating the Lantern Festival with us. And Louisa, look, China really knows how to put on a light show, doesn't it?
For sure. I mean, you can see in different cities a lot of light shows across the country.
Yeah.
Amazing.
I mean, I probably have a checklist of cities I want to go to when it comes to these light shows. But of course, our Ma Jing there was talking about the difference between tangyuan and yuan xiao. First of all, this is a time-honored tradition, right? So during the Lantern Festival Day, Chinese people across the country, they eat this, and they're basically glutinous rice balls. And there are differences, though, even though they're glutinous rice balls, regional variations.
Yes.
So again, the northern part is called what? What do we eat in the northern part?
Yuan xiao. And the south, we eat tangyuan.
Tangyuan, okay. And then how else is it different?
I mean, they come in savory and sweet fillings. Yeah, personally, I like both. But,
personally, you like both. I like both too.
Yeah.
But if you had to choose your favorite filling, which one would it be?
So on Lantern Festival, I start with the savory one, and then I end like dessert, and I eat the sweet ones. And the sweet ones, they have like peanut, sesame, they have date filling as well.
Yeah.
I tend to go for the peanut ones. I mean, to me, it reminds me of like peanut butter. It's creamy, rich. It's really good.
That sounds good. I probably would take the lotus seed one. Have you tried the lotus seed one?
I never tried the lotus seed
It's very good. Red bean paste, I think, is pretty good as well.
Yeah, and sesame.
And sesame.
You don't want to go on a date when you eat sesame.
That's true. That's true. But it's so common. It's such a common filling.
It is.
You know, red bean paste perhaps is a little bit, I don't know, or lotus seed.
And I think they also have dates as well. I've tried that before.
Dates as well. Yeah. Or maybe you can be creative, right? And use your own filling.
I'm sure, like in modern days, people have different feelings to, to bring innovation to culinary styles as well.
I think this is also an opportunity for multinational companies or food and consumer companies to take advantage of the massive Spring Festival consumption that we see here in China.
Yeah, absolutely.
So multinational companies can come up with their own interesting brands, localized, right? Yeah. That could be an interesting idea.
Sure,
Okay. Louisa, thank you so much for joining us on our Lantern Festival program.
Yeah, it's an honor to be here, and it's great to be joining you on the show and to celebrate this special day with you and all our viewers today.
Great to have you on the program. Do indeed check in with us again soon, Louisa. Yes. Thank you. All right, so throughout the program, you've been seeing traditional Chinese attire. The clothing that the Chinese people wore throughout history is called the Hanfu, and traditional Chinese attire is making a huge comeback in modern China as people in the country embrace their cultural and fashion heritage. That's also leading to a fast-growing and booming demand for Hanfu. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we'll explore the market potential of Hanfu.
.360-degree profiles of industry movers and shakers, tech mavericks, and policymakers. We drill down on their success. We ask how they set strategy and how they navigate in an increasingly competitive market. Real talk, real business. Join the conversation. Biz Talk, only on CGTN.
And welcome back to our special Lantern Festival edition of Biz Talk. So the Lantern Festival falls on the 15th day of the Chinese New Year. We just heard from our correspondents across China in terms of how the Lantern Festival is celebrated in various parts of the country. I want to bring it back to the studio now and talk a little bit more about the significance of the Lantern Festival for the Chinese people, but also take a big picture perspective in terms of why we're seeing such a rapid rise in cultural consumption here in China, in which Chinese culture, tradition, heritage, history, all of that is driving this boom in demand that we're seeing in the country. So to talk more about that, we're joined in the studio by Hanfu, who is a research fellow at Renmin University's Chongyang Institute for Financial Studies. Welcome, Hanfu.
Thank you.
We're also joined by Grace Xu, who writes a special column on culture at the Shanghai Daily. Welcome to the program, Grace. And then online, we are joined by Christian Fuchs, who is a Peruvian artist and also a Chinese culture enthusiast. So welcome to you all. Hanfu, let me begin with you because the Lantern Festival has been celebrated for at least over 2,000 years. Yes. And for a festival to be celebrated generation after generation for so long, it's got to hold special meaning for a people. Talk to us about the significance of this festival for the Chinese people and the values that this festival shows about the Chinese people.
Thank you for having me. If I may say that Lantern Festival has a lot of significance. It is an integral part of the whole celebration ceremony of Chinese Spring Festival, which is the last day of technically the 15th day of the Lunar New Year. And also it is also signifies the very beginning of the work of a new year. So it carries both meanings, the end of the celebration, but also brings the hope, the bright future for the new beginning of a new work in a new year. So this bears a lot of significance. If I may add, the Lantern Festival, because I'm researching on the Ancient Silk Road as well as the Belt and Road Initiative. So back in the Sui Dynasty, actually, Lantern Festival is also used as a diplomatic protocol, the day where the Chinese emperor would start meeting with the Ancient Silk Road countries' envoys on that very significant day to invite them to enjoy the lanterns and to maybe to consult with them and to work with them for a bright future. over the ancient Silk Road.
Wow, that is a very interesting factoid. So lanterns being used in diplomacy as well during as far back as the Sui dynasty, which would be over 1,500 years ago.
Exactly.
Around 1,500 years ago compared to today. Grace, let me get your take on the Lantern Festival. We just heard from our correspondents in terms of the various ways the Lantern Festival is celebrated across the country. How do you celebrate the Lantern Festival in your local community? Maybe tell our audience first which part of China you're from and how do you celebrate the Lantern Festival there?
I'm from Shanghai, and we celebrate the Lantern Festival just to eat sweet dumplings with family, and we also wear Hanfu to play with friends to enter some festivals, fairs, just like in Yu Garden. Yes, that's the way we celebrate this. But for something special, we also celebrate these days in the ancient ways, and we will film videos to share on the social media to introduce our own culture.
Yeah.
Yes.
So you mentioned sweet dumplings. What is the filling inside the sweet dumplings?
Maybe I like some red beans.
Red bean paste?
Yes, red bean paste, and it's add a lot of sugars.
Yeah.
Yes.
So would this be the glutinous rice balls, the tangyuan, or is this a very special sweet dumpling that we find in Shanghai?
Maybe it's the difference is that we also have meat dumpling.
And meat dumplings as well.
Yes, meat dumpling, yes, as well, yes.
And then Hanhua, you're from Hangzhou, which is not that far away from Shanghai.
Exactly.
But there are maybe minute differences in terms of how the Lantern Festival is celebrated in Hangzhou?
Yes.
Or is it pretty much the same?
Oh, of course, Lantern Festival is celebrated in every part of China, maybe with some slight minor differences in, because you just mentioned about tangyuan and the yuan xiao. This was like a big fight between northern part and southern part of China to identify which we should eat during the Lantern Festival.
Yeah.
In northern part of China, people used to call it yuan xiao, with also the sweet feeling, maybe from red beans, from sesame, from peanut, even from other modern feelings, to name a few. But in the southern part, we call it tang tuan. Tang tuan, for me, it means more sticky, more maybe sweeter, and it used to be enjoyed not only during the Spring Festival or during the Lantern Festival, but all the way through the Spring Festival celebration, because it's round, the shape and the taste, meaning this family reunion, harmony, and also sweet brings a brighter future.
Yeah, wow. There's a lot of symbolism, of course, that goes into the Chinese festivals. So what do the red lanterns symbolize? So when we talk about the Lantern festivals, it's usually red lanterns, right, that are being hung up in public places. So what does the red part of the red lanterns symbolize?
In the past, red lanterns is like taking the major part of the lantern decorations. But Grace mentioned the Yu Garden. Yu Garden is very famous for its lantern celebration, and it is almost become a national brand. And as far as I know, Yu Garden this year, because to celebrate the 60 years anniversary between China and France, establishing the formal diplomatic relations, Yu Garden even bring the Lantern Festival, Lantern celebration protocol to Paris already, and it is very colorful and more than red. Red is the color of China, but the colorful red, different lanterns and the different patterns of the lanterns, meaning that we are very creative and we celebrate the Lantern Festival with some modernity and our understanding of the fashion, especially the modern fashion, according and with the evolution, even with the modern technology, because some lanterns, as far as I know, are using the LEDs to put on the lanterns to show the different pictures and the different videos of the lantern evolution.
Yeah, a lot safer too. I mean, previously in ancient times, you had candles in there, right?
Yes.
So when the lanterns go into the air, potentially could be dangerous, but now LED lighting a little bit safer.
Right.
So you mentioned the Yu Gardens, Grace. The contrast in terms of the ancient red lanterns with the modern city look, I think that's a beautiful contrast. So do the lanterns, are they taken off immediately after the Lantern Festival is over? Or, after this recording, I can get myself a ticket to Shanghai and then still enjoy the beauty of the Lantern Festival as well? I mean, do they stay there for a few months or a few weeks, or are they just taken off immediately?
Just take for the end of the Lantern Festival. But actually, in the Asian time, we not only have the red lanterns, we have all kind, all shape, all color of lanterns. And actually, we do not only wear red clothes during the Lunar Festival. Just at the Lantern Festival, we wear white clothes and blue skirts because people in Asia think white clothes in the night light make you look shining like a moon. So it's our own beauty sense.
Wow,
yes.
That is good to know. So on the Lantern Festival, that day specifically, white clothing and then a blue dress.
Yes.
A white robe of some kind and then a blue dress. That sounds like a fantastic color combination.
Yes, it's called 白绫袄 and 蓝缎裙 in Chinese. Yes.
Wow, that is hard to translate. Would you like to take a crack at translating that?
It's hard to just like the white tops and the blue skirts.
Yeah.
Yes.
I mean, we're going to talk about traditional Chinese clothing, or the Hanfu, which is what you're wearing in just a second, and it's what Christian is wearing as well. Christian, I want to bring you into the conversation. So tell us a little bit more in terms of how you got interested into Chinese culture, Christian, and how much have you heard about China's Lantern Festival living abroad?
Hello. Well, I started getting interested in Chinese culture when I was a teenager and I was visiting royal palaces in Europe because always when I was visiting, I saw always like Chinese pavilions filled with beautiful Chinese porcelain, blue and white. And that's how my interest started. And then with time, I'm Peruvian, and we also have our Chinatown because we had also Chinese migration in the 19th century. And then I also started to visiting Chinatown when it finally opened because, well, my land was for many years hit by terrorism, so it was not that secure back then. But with the years, I started visiting more Chinatown and learning like about mooncakes and Mid-Autumn Festival. And well, Lantern Festival, I haven't seen many celebrations in my country. We mostly celebrate Chinese New Year. Of course, there are people, I think, who celebrate Lantern Festival in private. But mostly what is celebrated in Peru is basically Chinese New Year. And I celebrate myself Mid-Autumn Festival, inviting my friends to have mooncakes, and well, we do some tea ceremony. And that's what I basically do. But I belong, like, I started, so my interest started growing during the pandemic while I was in my house, like, of course, lockdown. And I started to discover these Chinese shows on Netflix, very popular shows like Eternal Love, Handsome Siblings, and well, the Love, Word of Honor, and all these shows. I don't know if you know that, because these names are the translations, and we got the shows translated. I mean, the names, but all the characters there were wearing Hanfu. And suddenly I was in Argentina and visiting Argentina, and I went to the house of a friend, and she showed me pictures from another evening. She had guests, and these guests were wearing Hanfu, and I was like, I need to meet these people. So that's how I discovered Lin and Lily, who are two Chinese friends who live in Buenos Aires, and they run this association called Tianan Hanja, the Celestial Family of the South. And they promote the Chinese culture in Buenos Aires and in Argentina. And they have a special place. Back then, I remember when I entered their shop, they had a whole area where they just had all these beautiful Hanfu clothing and many elements like fans, porcelain, and thousands of things we would able to enjoy while having tea, and we would wear Hanfu while having tea. And since I start seeing them every time I go to Argentina, that's the main reason I go there, because I just wanna meet them and share a bit of all the knowledge they have of Chinese ancient culture, Hanfu, and about the Han people.
Yeah, well, sounds like an absolutely fascinating Chinese culture journey. Kristen, you mentioned that you also have observed Chinese New Year celebrations in Peru. So maybe tell us a little bit more about that in terms of what you observed in Peru. How is Chinese New Year's celebrated there? And then you mentioned mooncake. So that's a different festival. Is there a particular filling in terms of the mooncake that you really enjoy that you want to share with us as well?
Well, I just love the mooncakes. I know they are eaten at the Mid-Autumn Festival, but well, I love sweets, first of all, of course, but I love the legend about the rabbit and everything related about this ancient tradition. So I thought it would be nice to celebrate it, and the growth of interest among South American people in Chinese festivities. It's interesting. So every time there is Mid-Autumn Festival, I invite people for tea, and I get these mooncakes we have a very well-known Chinese restaurant in Peru. Well, we have many also in Chinatown, but I buy them. Walok is it called, and Walok makes these boxes with yuan and these mooncakes. So I buy them, and I invite my friends for tea, and then I set some like Chinese elements that would bring luck during that time. And well, the Chinese New Year, well, people put the decorations in certain restaurants and they started to celebrate, but I don't feel it's very traditional. So I prefer small gatherings. So when people are doing private dinners to celebrate the Chinese New Year, I prefer to attend them rather to go to street parties, because I feel people use sometimes the date just to have a celebration, and that's not so traditional. So I prefer to gather in small groups,
Yeah, sounds good.
So our migration was mainly Cantonese. So with time I learned, so our food also, our Chinese food is Cantonese. But with time visiting Los Angeles, I also have Chinese friends in Los Angeles, and I have a Chinese galleries there. So I learned about Sichuan, other kinds of food of China, and that's why I prefer private gatherings.
Yeah, And you can take the Sichuan spice, Christian. I mean, it's very mouth numbing, right? The spice in that part of China.
I can, because I'm Peruvian and we eat lots of spicy food. But I have to say, I had nothing as spicy before as Sichuan food.
Yeah,
it was crazy spicy, but I can take it, just not every day,
Well, I mean, if you come to China one day and you like spicy food, Christian, I would recommend you try out the spice in Hunan province, in Jiangxi province. So that can really spice up your life, let's put it that way. I want to come back to the studio, Hanhua and Grace. So Christian said that he has a sweet tooth. Would you say the southern part of China has a sweeter tooth, let's say, compared to the north? Because you were saying that the glutinous rice balls maybe eaten in the south is a little bit sweeter, but does the southern part of the country maybe enjoy sweet foods a little bit more?
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Okay.
Yeah.
He also mentioned Cantonese cuisine, which is my favorite cuisine out of all of the Chinese cuisines.
Right.
I think food around Shanghai, that would rank second up my list, which has that sweet, savory flavor as well. But coming back to the Lantern Festival, there's also a romantic element to the Lantern Festival, which I find very interesting. So in ancient China, apparently budding romances may happen during the Lantern Festival because the ladies would go out and potentially try and find a suitor on Lantern Festival Day, right? Or am I completely off? Grace, is that part of the history?
Yes, because in the Asian time, women cannot go out during night, but during the Lantern Festival holidays, they can go out. So it gave an opportunity to men and women to have a time to meet. Yes.
Yeah. So this might be China's version of Valentine's Day.
Yes.
Exactly.
So we had Valentine's Day, I guess, in this part of the country a lot earlier than the traditional Valentine's Day. I think that appeared in the 14th and 15th century in Europe. But I guess this would be, over 2,000 years old, China's version of Valentine's Day. So quite interesting that the Lantern Festival has that component as well. But also, I think a fun tradition of the Lantern Festival is we have something called the Lantern Riddles. So it's not just about people going to the public and enjoying the beauty of the lanterns in different shapes and different colors, but also people would write riddles, right, on the lanterns, and they would enjoy that. So Hanhua or Grace, would one of you like to tell us a little bit more about this tradition? What is the tradition of the lantern riddles?
You know that so well. In the lanterns, because lantern will be lit up or lantern will be put in the river. So people will put, in Chinese calligraphy, of course, to put many best wishes, good words on the lanterns, including, but not limited to these best wishes. So riddles is an integral part of this wishes, because if you can figure out what is the answer to the riddles, it means the people who get that will be very smart or have a good blessing for the next year's study or work. So this is part of the Lantern Festival, to put riddles on the lanterns in addition to the good wishes people want to convey, through the heaven, through the river, or through the earth.
I just find this fascinating because, the Lantern Festival, I would imagine it's a day of celebration, of festivities, of having fun, but then there's also this intellectual component to it as well, where you actually have to think a little bit more as well on sort of this wonderful holiday. So if we're going to do the show, of course, we're going to have some lantern riddles and keep with tradition. So I have 2 lantern riddles prepared for our guests. So let's try them out and see if any of you can get the lantern riddles. Unfortunately, I don't have a gift prepared for our guests, but I guess in ancient China, maybe a shopkeeper or street vendor would have a little gift available for the person who's able to get the riddle. Okay, so how about I read the riddle and then I'll...
you should put it on the lantern.
We should put it on the lantern. We should have gotten a lantern and then written it on there, but I only have this paper. So 2 riddles I have for our guests, and then after I read them out, perhaps I will give all of you some time to think about it, absorb it, and then see if we can answer it, okay? So the first riddle that I have for you and for our audiences as well is this. What comes once in a minute, twice in a moment, but never in 1,000 years? Okay, so that's the first riddle. So let's soak that in, absorb. Christian, you can hear us too, so you can think about this. The second riddle is this. Forward, I am heavy, but backward, I am not. What am I? So these are not traditional Chinese riddles, of course, but they're interesting, so I picked these 2. So how about we get a few seconds to think about this.
Let me ask you first, because in the traditional, like you said, in the traditional Chinese Lantern Festival riddles, usually we'll ask people to guess like one thing, plant, animal, a person who may be related to the people. So what is that? What is that? Is it a plant? Give us a hint. Or an animal?
Yeah, I don't want to give a hint, but let's do it. So it's not a thing. It's more of a play on words. So I guess this is the modern version of the lantern riddle.
Now I see the evolution of the Lantern Festival.
So it's not an actual thing, let's say.
It includes more intellectual, engagement
I mean, it's
in this
fun.
celebration, but it's fun.
Yeah, because in ancient times, obviously, for a fest, for a holiday, we're not going to be watching TV or watching short videos, and this is quite an entertaining way to celebrate the Lantern Festival or the festivities.
So follow this direction, let me guess, for the riddle with regarding to the once or twice.
Okay, so you have an answer for that already, Hanhua, right?
I guess that.
Hold on to that answer. Grace, do you have an answer to any of the 2 riddles that we just talked about?
Maybe I need to think more.
You need to think a little bit more. It's very challenging, especially if we're doing this on TV as well. Christian, do you have an answer to either of the two riddles?
I'm sorry I don't. I'm very bad guessing, but I'll keep thinking.
Okay. All right, Hanhua. So for the first question, what comes once in a minute, twice in a moment, but never in 1,000 years?
Thank you first for giving me such a huge hint. So I guess it's wordplay, which is wordplay. So I guess it's a letter, which is letter M.
Absolutely correct. It is the letter M.
Once in the minute.
Yes,
in this
the word
minute word.
M appears once.
Yeah.
And then in the word moment, it appears
twice.
Twice. And then never in 1,000 years.
In 1,000
exactly.
years.
There's no M in there.
Only M.
Yeah. So that's the first riddle. What about the second riddle? Do we have an idea?
It's harder.
It's pretty hard, isn't it?
We need more time.
Yes, we need more time.
Forward, I am heavy, but backward, I am not. It's another word play. The answer is the word ton.
Oh,
Ton. Right? So T-O-N, heavy.
Wow.
A ton, 2 tons, heavy. So forward, when it's spelled properly, T-O-N, it's heavy.
Oh, yeah.
But spelled backwards, it's just N-O-T.
Wow.
Not.
Wow.
Backward,
What
I
a
am
twist
not.
of the word.
So it's a wordplay.
Yeah.
So this is the modern version, I guess. This fusion of Eastern and Western culture combined together into
I'm
the
a little
Lantern
bit
Festival.
distracted because forward, you are not heavy either.
Oh, this is fun. I think we could do this forever. But I think this is also a good way, I guess, in ancient China for the general population to better understand Chinese culture as well, maybe to increase literacy, understand poems better. It's just good intellectual fun on a very festive day. Yeah, so
the romantic and interactive feature towards the Lantern Festival, because you guess the young couple to guess the riddle together.
could be as well.
Yes.
Yeah. So many interesting components. We have a love component, we have family reunions, we have an intellectual component. So quite an interesting festival, the Lantern Festival. Glutinous rice balls, it can satisfy your sweet tooth as well. So fascinating stuff.
Yes.
Okay. I want to turn now to the city of Luoyang in central China. So this city may not be that well known outside of the country, but Luoyang's contribution to Chinese culture has been absolutely immense. The city was the capital of several Chinese cities, so that naturally made Luoyang a political, economic, and cultural center of ancient China. So we were just talking about the Lantern Festival. That festival has been celebrated again from generation to generation. But a key part of Chinese culture and history that's making a modern comeback today is the Hanfu, or traditional Chinese attire. So characterized by flowing robes, wide sleeves, intricate patterns, or also a minimalistic style, Hanfu is experiencing a revival in modern China, especially among the younger generation who loves to wear traditional Chinese attire to cities with rich histories such as Luoyang. So our Aaron Liu took a trip to Luoyang to find out more about how China is combining culture, history, tradition, and consumption all into one. Take a look.
Not far from Caoxian, there is a Luoyang, Henan province, which has a history of more than 5,000 years. It has also become popular because of Hanfu industry. After the Spring Festival in 2023, 70% of Hanfu orders in Caoxian came from Luoyang. Since the end of April 2023, its daily customer flow has increased by 30 to 40,000, constantly breaking records. It's been over a year now. Is it still popular this winter? Let's find out the answer.
The first stop for young people coming to Luoyang is the Luoyi Asian City. During this year's Spring Festival holiday, the cultural and tourism market in Luoyang remained hot. Official data shows that during the Spring Festival holiday, the city received a total of 11.13 million tourists, representing an increase of about 87% compared to the previous year.
I'm from Anhui.
I'm from Hunan.
Everyone looks great online and wanted to give it a try, mainly for taking some great photos.
Seeing the trend of Hanfu's popularity, Luoyang has quickly launched a series of activities.
We have many popular spots, such as our Zhaoyuan Bridge, which is actually the most popular. From this bridge, you can take photos from a photographer's perspective and capture the entire scene behind us, including the palace ladders of our Loyi ancient city, our ancient architecture, and scenes of small bridges and flowing water.
The popularity of Hanfu has brought great business opportunities to the surrounding area. The first to seize this opportunity was the owner of a car repair shop next to the ancient city.
Behind me is a street full of Hanfu shops. A year ago, this whole area was filled with car repair shops. You can still see some signs related to car repair shops that haven't been taken down. Even the custom car floor mat store is now filled with Hanfu.
Li Huili and Li Zhiyi, a couple who own a Hanfu store, also removed their car decoration sign during the 2023 Spring Festival. A year later, I visited their store to see how business was doing.
I feel that we don't have enough staff now. Even though it's winter, I feel like it's spring for this industry.
当时的原因就是穿汉服的人多。
The reason at that time was that many people were wearing Hanfu and there weren't many stores. As long as we do our job well, we don't have to worry about customer sources.
As night falls, I experience the charm of the ancient city at night while wearing Hanfu. Relying on the popularity of TV dramas like Fengqi Luoyang, immerse experiential new scenes have also emerged, making the nightlife in the scenic area both beautiful and enjoyable, better meeting the consumption needs of the young demographic.
Hanfu is not exclusive to Luoyang. If internet celebrities want to stay popular for a long time, they cannot do without the entire cultural heritage. The whole city should be built as a scene. History is the foundation of Luoyang, and this time it wants to seize the opportunity of history.
Wow, some beautiful scenes there from Luoyang. So we'll talk about Hanfu in a second, but let's get the larger picture of the rapid rise of China's cultural consumption first. So China's Statistics Bureau surveyed some 73,000 companies in the cultural sector and related businesses, and it found a booming industry with combined revenues in 2023 of nearly 13 trillion yuan, or over 1.8 trillion US dollars. So that's a year-over-year increase of 8.2%. Now profits, that grew at a lot faster rate, at over 1 trillion yuan, or over 160 billion US dollars. So the bottom lines of culture consumption companies soared by nearly 31% year over year in 2023. Hanhua, let me come to you. Talk to us about the structural trends that's driving the cultural consumption growth that we see in China. I mean, it's absolutely amazing how fast this industry is growing.
Yeah, it is. The culture industry compared to other industries, especially during the COVID and after COVID, it has still enjoyed the fast growing and even the booming pace of these years, partly because that it is a natural evolution of a country's economic development. So in this stage, we have grown from the manufacturing, from the heavy industries towards a more culture and content related industry. So that is the fundamental and the basic reasons for the culture industry to enjoy a booming and faster growing pace. And I'm so happy that Hanfu part is a very strong and subsection of this culture industry because it gives people a tangible assets because you're wearing Hanfu, you're enjoying the Hanfu merchandise products almost on daily basis. So you can feel that, you can touch that, and you can immediately create a connection with your own history. So this is the strong base of Hanfu subsection as well as the culture industry to enjoy the fast growth. And after the COVID, and especially in the turbulent world these days, I think Chinese people are feeling more and more necessary and even sometimes feel it is their mission to be reconnected with the Chinese history, to find strength from the culture and the history in the Chinese past, to feel that how strong we were in the past, and also how resilient we can be facing the future, which is having the geopolitical tensions, having the wars in some other parts of the world. So people suddenly realized that how our ancestors can enjoy their lives while striking a balance between life and work in their lives. So Chinese people can get this kind of strength also after the COVID and in this kind of the context of the world political change. So the culture consumption as well as the culture industry development is developing under this context, and it is also enjoyed by the younger generations developing, and also it is enjoyed by the high technologies development. So the culture industry itself can enjoy the benefits and the innovations from the technology innovations. So it gives some new and modern flavor towards the culture consumption industry. For example, people can enjoy the Hanfu, the virtual pictures, as well as other virtual experience from the online platforms. And it can also enjoy many history and stories from Instagrams, from TikToks, from Chinese Weibo. So they are like having an immersive experience before even they buy the very first suit of Hanfu. So this kind of experience gives them a lot of strength as well. And also the online platforms in return will also boost the cultural consumption in many ways.
I'm going to talk about the combination of, let's say, technology, digital platforms with a Chinese culture in just a second with you, Grace. But I want to stick with this rise in cultural consumption, Hanhua. And do you think it's more reflective of where China's economic development currently stands? So as a country becomes more affluent, wealthier, doesn't have to worry about basic necessities anymore. So in this particular stage of China's economic development, that means that the Chinese people can enjoy more of the cultural elements from their past and present.
Absolutely, because we have a ever-growing large number and large portion of the middle class. Just like you said, people do not need to worry about the basic necessities. The house, the cars, and of course, education is part of the cultural consumption. So people can pay more attention to the culture and education part of their consumption proportion. So that is the very strong reason for this cultural industry to develop and to boom. And also, I think because Chinese people are more urbanized. Nowadays, there are about 75 people living in the cities, versus 40 years ago, there are only 25% of people living in the cities. So this is a strong and significant change of the consumption of the consumers' percentage, so that these consumers, well-educated, middle class, and long for a lifetime education and learning. So it is very natural for them to go back to our rich history and the diversity of this history to see what kind of tangible symbols and assets we can learn from and we can enjoy today.
And I think for me, this also is what China means when the country talks about going from a fast-paced growth rate to high-quality development. Because culture, at least in my mind, it's sort of nourishment for the soul. It's satiation for the mind. So that's, I think, that aligns well with high-quality development and where the country wants to go to. So Hanhua was talking about the rich history of China, Grace. So in terms of the growth potential of the culture industry here in China, what's your take on that? There is such a rich and deep history, such a deep reservoir of cultural elements that Chinese consumers can draw on. What do you think?
I think Hanfu gave us a choice to make difference from the Western side. So we have our own culture, our own assets, our own sense of beauty. And that's important why so many Chinese young people choose Hanfu. And it also can combine our traditional culture together, because the clothes is the most direct sense of our culture, since it can combine our business, economic, and the technology of a period of time. Yes.
So what about technology then? So I want to get your take on this. Being a part of the younger generation, of course, culture, history. You want to see the tangible elements as well, but the digital platforms can amplify the spread of culture and history as well. So how important do you think are the digital media platforms? How important is technology in terms of really boosting cultural consumption?
It gives us a chance to show more to the foreigner people what about our own culture. So I think the technology can make it be better and make it through faster.
Yeah,
yes,
absolutely. So if, for example, an influencer goes to Luoyang dressed in Hanfu, great nightscape, makes a short video, that can definitely amplify the attractiveness of the city and the culture as well. Christian, I want to turn to you. So you haven't been to China yet. You are a Chinese culture enthusiast. If you come to China, which cities would you like to see?
I would love to come to some Hanfu festival if possible when I'm there. I'd love to visit the Forbidden City. I would love to visit Xi'an and connect to the ancient culture, to the original Han people, right? So, and I think that like all these TV shows are making a very good job because they are awakening the interest of foreign people by showing how the ancient Chinese civilization lived. So I think by showing all this and choosing popular actors like Hu Itian, or I think that captures the interest of people to see these like idols wearing these robes, and of course that I think that has triggered also the consumption of Hanfu all over the world. But yeah, back to your question, I would love to go to China, and aside from visit all the places I want to visit, I would love to make an artist residency there in order to learn ancient art techniques I could include in my work.
Absolutely. So you're thinking about perhaps in the future fusing together elements of art from both China and I guess the broader West in general. I think that sounds like an absolutely fantastic idea. Should be a very interesting exhibition to go visit and to go look at. Xi'an, I would definitely recommend you go to that city as well. Another ancient capital of China. The Ming Dynasty city walls in Xi'an, absolutely gorgeous, breathtaking. You can even ride a bike on there as well, Christian. Don't worry, it's very sturdy. So if you do have a chance, go to Xi'an, formerly called Chang'an, of course, the city of eternal peace. So an absolutely beautiful city. Grace, let me turn back to you and ask you about how competitive is the cultural consumption market here in China. So for a younger generation such as yourself, what is it going to take for you to engage with a particular cultural product or service?
Maybe we like something like city walk, so it can make us know more culture and history about the architecture and the city. And also we usually wear our own Hanfu to attend some fairs and some activities, just like in the Xi'an or Luoyang or any city that gave us a chance to show ourselves.
Yeah.
Yes.
Would you say that's also a trend where Chinese people are wearing traditional attire and they're going to various cities across the country, especially ones with a lot of historic significance, and then just engage in what you call city walks, right? So this is basically wearing Chinese clothing, traditional clothing, and just walking around the city, just enjoying that kind of vibe and that kind of feeling. So is that a new trend among the younger generation here?
Yes.
You think so?
Yes, I think so, because we went to Suzhou because it has many beautiful gardens from the Ming Qing dynasty and even some from the Song dynasty.
Yeah.
So we will Hanfu and walk through the garden and take some pictures.
Yeah.
And also we will do something special for the maybe festival to maybe we'll do something from just like the Asian people to do in the special days, and we will do that in the garden. We will get together and to celebrate our own days.
Yeah.
Yes.
Suzhou, another beautiful city. So Christian, if you're listening in, if you come to China, you got to check out Suzhou as well and the beautiful gardens in Suzhou. So absolutely a must-see destination. Hanfu, I want to come to you. It's not just domestic companies that can leverage this cultural consumption boom. How can multinational companies operating here in China use their expertise, their experience to also connect with Chinese consumers when it comes to culture? Because this is such a booming industry.
Yes. I should, by the way, I should really do this myself.
Yeah.
To go to
City
Suzhou
walk.
and wear, the Hanfu, whatever, dynasties it come from, just to do something that our ancient ancestors are doing. Maybe have some drinks and write some poems.
Write some poems.
Yes.
Some rice wine would be good.
Yes, exactly. So speaking of the domestic companies and the multinational companies, I think they are leveraging well about the Chinese symbols, cultural symbols. In the past years, for example, every Chinese Lunar New Year, they will come up with some products with special zodiac. Like this year is the Year of Dragon. So I already saw many multinational companies, the consumption companies, they are coming up with these products, cultural products with the dragon symbol. So it is the very first step of their utilizing their strengths and their marketing and the branding, maybe competitiveness to leverage this domestic market, which has such a reservoir, just like you mentioned, of the rich culture and many cultural products as well. So, this market itself is highly competitive, and down the road, I think it needs a lot of work to follow. For example, the authenticity of the Hanfu itself, and how to combine the traditional style with the modern and comfortable, as well as the modern accessibility of these traditional clothing. And also how to leverage the Chinese rich cultural products with the modern marketing and branding skill sets, and how to reach the audience and the consumers through digital platforms, through many other ways to include them into these consumers, as well as a bigger circle of the cultural development, cultural product development. So it is highly competitive, but I think with the younger generations, they are experiencing these Chinese culture with Hanfu clothing on their bodies, and with their use and the grasp of the modern technology. I think both the domestic companies as well as the multinational companies can enjoy the fast-growing market together.
Absolutely. I think having that authentic experience, like you mentioned, that authentic cultural, historical experience that can provide that unique experience, I think that is going to be absolutely crucial when it comes to standing out in the cultural consumption market. Christian, I want to come to you. How do you think the world can better understand Chinese culture? Because if you want to understand, I guess, the Chinese mindset, the Chinese psyche, it's quite important to understand Chinese culture. So from a global perspective, I would say, how do you think the world can better engage with and understand Chinese culture?
People nowadays, it's very important to know their traditions and their past, because if you don't know your past, you don't know where you're going. So if you're able to see the original values from people that were transmitted across generations, I think that's the most important thing. And if you go back and you see how Chinese people worship their ancestors and nature, then, and all the important elements, a person needs to grow and to become a correct person. I think that's the main thing. Like, in order to get to understand a culture, you have to know their past and their roots.
Yeah.
That's for me the most important thing.
Is there a particular element of Chinese culture, Christian, that you really are drawn to? So you mentioned, for example, how the Chinese people perhaps relate to their ancestor. ancestors. Are there other elements in Chinese culture that really fascinates you?
Well, I love tea, of course.
Yeah.
And of course, tea comes from China. And well, I love how they have all these ancestors' shrines at home. Of course, I also have my shrine, of course, differently, not like it's not an Asian shrine, I mean a Chinese shrine, but it comes from the same principle, right? To keep I would say, the light of their ancestors in your life. Yeah. But well, also I'm totally fascinated by Hanfu. And since I started wearing Hanfu, I just feel weird when I don't wear it, And if I'm going to special places or I have a dinner or something important or a cocktail, I try to wear my nicest Hanfus. Now, like this, what I'm wearing, it's a very simple one because I'm traveling and I didn't want to carry much. And if I would have a suitcase only with Hanfu, it would be very heavy, But I like the flow of the clothing, how free you feel inside your Hanfu. And I would say that when I'm wearing Hanfu, I feel more myself, So, and I remember something very beautiful my friend Lily said, that imagine you're in a very nice landscape and you appear in a photo wearing Hanfu. You're just a part of the landscape as a flower or as a tree or as a plant. Imagine a person wearing jeans and a t-shirt in one of these magnificent environments. You would just have to erase the person, So Hanfu goes beautifully with the landscape.
Yeah. So if that's the case, again, I strongly encourage you to bring your collection of Hanfu to either Xi'an or Suzhou, Christian. So welcome indeed. I want to zoom in a bit more on the resurgence of traditional Chinese clothing, or the Hanfu that we've been talking about in contemporary China. So in Cao County in eastern China's Shandong province, the Hanfu industry is absolutely thriving. So in 2023, Cao County's Hanfu industry employed some 100,000 people and generated close to $1 billion in sales. Our Aaron Liu went to several companies making traditional Chinese clothing in Cao County to better understand how a small county here in China can transform into the country's 4th largest Hanfu production base. Take a look.
This is Chinese New Year Hanfu and Ma Mianjun, literally horse-faced skirt. Produced in Caoxian County, East China's Shandong province, has seen brisk sales. Yao Zhixing, a local Hanfu manufacturer, has made inheriting and innovating Hanfu culture her goal.
We've integrated various Hanfu resources onto one large platform. For example, we specialize in horse-faced skirts, while others focus on children's Hanfu.
As the largest production base of performance costumes in China, Caoxian started to produce Hanfu in 2018 and has seen rapid development by embracing the growth of e-commerce. Today, Caoxian accounts for 40% of Hanfu sales nationwide. In 2023, sales of Hanfu in the county reached 7 billion yuan. I visited Hanfu Industrial Street to learn more.
This short street, just a few hundred meters long, may seem ordinary, but it gathers all the materials and accessories for Hanfu. Merchants can find all the raw materials from making Hanfu here. You can see signs along the street that say printing, fabric, accessories, all very comprehensive. I will take you to a shop that sells accessories to see what they have.
There are over 1,000 types of accessories for Hanfu here, and new varieties are added every year, mainly sold to local customers. They provide samples and state their requirements, and we can fulfill them.
To encourage the development of Hanfu businesses, the local government of Caoxian County earmarked about 10 billion yuan to build an industrial park.
This is the under construction Caoxian Digital Economy Industrial Park. In the future, e-commerce, live streaming, and related industries will settle here, accommodating more than 200 of the merchants. This will further create a cluster effect, promoting the development of Caoxian's Hanfu online industry.
Our online stores in Cao County currently number around 13,000, and we have reached 181 offline experience stores. Through the interaction between online and offline, we are elevating the development of the entire Hanfu industry to a higher level.
Aaron Liu, CGTN, Caoxian.
Wow, I gotta ask our Aaron Liu about that beautiful turquoise Hanfu that he was in. I need to get my hands on one of those. Grace, I want to come to you on this one. So this revival of the Hanfu, would you say, is this a fad, or do you think this is now absolutely mainstream?
I still think Hanfu is a niche market in China because we maybe only wear Hanfu in some special sense and special times. Maybe we take photo, we travel. But I think Hanfu can still wear in our own daily life.
Yeah.
Yes, since Hanfu is not only for one dynasty, it has an evolution. So it's the reason why we can wear Hanfu in the modern life.
Yeah.
Yes.
I feel I'm seeing this becoming more and more mainstream because if I'm in the subway station, if I'm going to malls, I can pretty much always see people dressed in Hanfu clothing. Which dynasty, Grace, is this Hanfu clothing from? So again, this is about the wide flowing robes. Maybe, stretch out your arms and show our audience how wide the robes are. That is absolutely gorgeous. I'm not sure if our audience can see the intricate floral designs of the Hanfu with the touch of gold and blue. Yeah, this is absolutely beautiful. And I can't imagine how long would it take for a Hanfu like this to be made. I mean, is this several days, several weeks, a month? Do you have an idea of how long it usually takes, a well-designed Hanfu like that?
It depends. When it's made by some factory, maybe in Cao country, so it's maybe 2 or 3 days, just okay. But if that's made by handmade, it needs more than 3 or 4 months.
3 or 4 months?
Yes.
To make a beautiful looking one. And which dynasty is this particular Hanfu from? Because the Hanfus look different. They evolve throughout the Chinese dynasties.
Yes, it's not for just one dynasty, it's just different styles. These styles of Hanfu is more popular in the Ming dynasty.
In the Ming dynasty. So about 600 years ago.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's just a style.
Just a style, but it's an absolutely beautiful style. Hanhua, let me come to you. Explain to us this phenomenon in terms of this growing popularity with Hanfu.
Yes.
For me, it just feels like the past few years that we've seen this rise in Hanfu, especially among the younger generation.
Yes, yes.
Yeah.
Let me say that every mainstream industry can be grown from a niche market.
Yeah.
So I'm really confident, and I think Hanfu is really promising in China's younger generation and in China's future development. China can be so industrialized, just like the video we watched. Caoxie is a small county, but it grew to be the largest industrial base for the Hanfu producing, Hanfu clothing, hand clothing production. So it's just like another Yiwu where Chinese products can go abroad to every corner of the world. And it is also a reflection of China. It's such an industrialized country. It can produce nearly everything for Chinese, not only for Chinese, but for the world.
Yeah.
So this phenomenon, in my opinion, will be growing, will be very promising, will become an integral part of China's economy in the next stage of development, because China is still also suffering, like the rest of the world, suffering from the COVID, suffering from the turbulence of the world politics, and the China's economic recovery is still on the way. So I think the cultural part of the industrialization, as well as Chinese or China providing more culture-related product to the world, is still on the way, but it is very promising.
Yeah, absolutely. So the pace of Hanfu growth could potentially be relatively fast going down the road as this becomes more and more mainstream. Christian, I want to come to you. Do you see perhaps a fusion of Chinese elements from the Hanfu and then combined with elements from other cultures as well when it comes to contemporary fashion? Is that possible? Can we have something interesting like that?
Well, I'm seeing nowadays many Hanfu elements in contemporary fashion. Also in my country, many designers are including like this kind of like crossed, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
How the fabrics go here. And they just don't know it's really from Hanfu. People think sometimes when I'm wearing Hanfu, oh, I love your kimono. And I'm like, this is not a kimono, you know? And then I tell about Hanfu, about Huaxia, etc. And then I start to explain them. But yeah, I can tell also in international fashion. Of course, for example, one designer I like very much is Joji Yamamoto. And well, he's Japanese, but the flow of the clothing resembles very much ancient Hanfu clothing. I think everything comes from there because like China is the origin of everything, basically, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I love this contrast of the Hanfu that you're wearing, Christian, because it's more of a minimalistic style. And there are Hanfus, of course, like that. And then we contrast that with Grace's Hanfu, which is very intricate in design as well. I want to bring it back a little bit more to the larger picture, Hanhua, and talk about the role of cultural consumption. Of course, Hanfu is part of cultural consumption. How do you see the role of cultural consumption in terms of boosting incomes and prosperity in China's countryside, in the rural areas? So we were just talking about Cao County, for example, in the countryside of China, and yet they were able to build up this industrial base for a product, the Hanfu. So in general, cultural consumption. That can include Hanfu, that can include tourism as well to the countryside. How important is that element for China's efforts to revitalize its rural areas?
Just like I said, proportion-wise, China already has over 70% of population living in the urban area or the rural areas attached to the urbanization development. So this is a significant number, and this is also the major portion of China's labor force. So taking that into account, you will feel that the rural area, thanks to the elevation of the complete poverty back in 2020, after over one decade or maybe longer decades effort from the government, from the NGOs, from the all parties of life working together. So we have completely elevated the poverty, extreme poverty, but we need to figure out what is next. What is next for the rural areas development? Thanks to China's history, we have a lot of historic relics located in these rural areas or in these less developed cities, so that these relics can be perfectly combined with the Hanfu clothing. Yeah. Modernization as well as development as well as the consumption. So that can be Hanfu plus, for example, Hanfu plus tourism, Hanfu plus the marketing and branding for some cultural products, Hanfu plus cuisine and other tourism enjoyment experiences, so that I think Hanfu can be a trigger point, or the cultural product can be a trigger point for the next stage development of China's economy as well. Yeah. And thanks to the younger generation, because it is the driving force of Hanfu to be showcased in China, not only in China but in the world stage, thanks to their efforts and their desire to be reconnected with the Chinese history. And the younger generation happen to be the major labor force for the next development as well. So these two forces happen to be the one force that can drive cultural development as well as the China's economy development together.
Yeah, and it's easier to go to some of these smaller villages, off the beaten path places as well because of the infrastructure drive here in China. I'm always amazed that even with smaller cities or smaller towns and counties, there's a high-speed rail station. Yes. So if you want to wear your Hanfu and go off the beaten path to a smaller place, a less discovered place, you can do that. Do you have any recommendations, Grace, in terms of smaller towns or smaller villages that people should go visit in a Hanfu? I mean, Suzhou, absolutely gorgeous. Shanghai, I mean, also gorgeous in a Hanfu. It's a nice contrast, right, with the skyscrapers and Xi'an, of course. But are there other cities that you would recommend our friends from abroad to go look into if they really want to enjoy and experience Chinese culture?
Maybe Xitang.
Xitang,
yes.
And where is that?
In the Jiaxing province.
In
Jiaxing.
In Jiaxing?
Yes.
So this is Jiangsu province?
Yes.
It's Jiangsu province.
It's Jiangsu.
Okay. Do you have any recommendations, Hanhua, in terms of, people come over here, they might go to a Beijing, a Shanghai, Guangzhou, maybe Shenzhen, but if you had to choose a city to really experience Chinese culture?
Wow, there are so many.
Too many.
Too many.
Yeah.
First thing first, I would recommend my hometown, which is Hangzhou.
Yes.
Because Hangzhou is such a nice place. Modern city, capital of China's internet.
Yeah.
So Hangzhou is a natural choice for wearing Hanfu on the street to enjoy. On one side, it is the modern development of the new buildings as well as the West Lake.
Yes.
So you can walk by the West Lake wearing a very nice and beautiful Hanfu together. Also, Hangzhou is the city of China's internet. So there are so many easy, accessible, live broadcast of your Hanfu wearing experience,
yes.
and even buy Hanfu on
Yeah.
the spot,
Yeah.
because it is where Taobao, where Ali, where many other internet companies are located. So
Yeah.
Hangzhou is a natural choice. And I've put a lot of other cities in my Google Map research because this is the city I want to tap into next trip. So there are so many. For example, we talked about Luoyang. I only went to Luoyang one time, so I definitely want to visit Luoyang next time,
Yeah.
as well as other cities in Henan province, because Henan province is regarded as the birthplace of Chinese Han and the Han culture. So
Yeah.
this is definitely the whole province. There are many cities in this whole province and many contexts as well that you need to tap into
Yeah.
as a Chinese.
Yeah.
So also Shanxi province, not only Xi'an, Weinan, Yan'an, other cities and
Yeah.
counties. So
The terracotta warriors are
Yes.
close to Xi'an, right? In a
Yes.
smaller place called
Yes.
Xianyang. So
Yes.
that's also definitely a must-see. But are you concerned, Hanhua? I mean, we have a good time talking about the booming industry of the Hanfu. And are there concerns about over-commercialization of culture and history? I mean, how do you maintain that balance between having that authentic experience on the one hand and preserving culture, and then too much commodification of the industry as well? How do we find that right balance? Can a balance be found?
I'm not concerned for now because, like Ray said, it is still a niche market. It's still driven by the younger generation who are really have this, love for the Chinese culture, but want to bring that into a modern day life. But down the road, probably it's just like a balance of life and work. It is a balance of the past and the balance of the modern and the future. So I think down the road, we need to take some factors into consideration. It's good that you have already have this concern about whether there needs to be a balance between the old and the new, the tradition and modern, as well as the over-commercialization or over-consumption of Hanfu, making it a two-way an industrial product rather than keeping it with some culture and the traditional flavor from the past.
Yeah.
So I think challenges are there probably, but not a concern. For example, we need to figure out the authenticity of the Hanfu. We need to see whether we can utilize the modern technology, but not driven by the modern technology. And we need to commercialize Hanfu to some extent because the factories, the workers, they need to earn a living by producing the Hanfu. But also we need to also bear in mind whether this is true Hanfu or there is only the very bad in the copy of Hanfu.
Yeah.
So we need to bear in mind maybe read more books for the younger generation and to learn about the true culture, and also to strike a balance between whether they want to take it as a career or just to take it as during the leisure time. So there should be a balance. Of
Yeah.
course, I agree with you on the balance side.
Yeah. So Grace, how do you see the Hanfu industry or cultural consumption evolving in general? So as part of the younger generation, how would you like to see this industry evolve going down the road?
Yes, I think Hanfu need more chance to be close to our daily life. Just like Hanhua said, we need some true Hanfu that can experience our really culture. Yes, and I think Hanfu is a platform to combine our traditional culture together, just like our how we living, how we eating, and how we wear clothing, transportations. Hanfu is a direct experience to show how our Chinese to make our life better. Yes.
Great stuff. Okay, we're going to leave it there. I feel like after our talk, I need to go outside and get my own Hanfu as well, a tailor-made. I'm not in Hanfu right now, but this is still traditional Chinese clothing. So thank you so much, Hanhua, Grace Xu, and of course, Christian Fuchs joining us online. Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
From the Lantern Festival's vibrant celebrations, the historical streets of China's ancient capital of Luoyang, and the bustling Hanfu production base in Cao County, China is seeing a stronger fusion, I would say, of the past and present that not only revitalizes heritage and tradition, but this fusion is also shaping a dynamic future as well. Cultural consumption is definitely a trend to watch here in China's evolving consumer landscape, where opportunities for growth and innovation can be absolutely huge. So thanks for joining us on our special Lantern Festival edition of Biz Talk here on CGTN. I'm Michael Wang in Beijing. We'll see you again next time.